Well, look, I'm going to tell you something that's been on my mind since I woke up this morning. And honestly, waking up at my age is an event in itself. At 103, that first moment of the day, that split second when you open your eyes and you're not quite sure if your body is going to cooperate or be stubborn, that moment is worth more than anything else that follows. My name is Maggie Davis, and I've spent over a century putting up with this body of mine, which sometimes plays along and other times does whatever it darn well pleases. The thing is, today I want to tell you something you won't usually find in the manuals, something that isn't in the pamphlets at the doctor's office, or in those pretty wellness for seniors books your daughters get you for Christmas. I want to tell you what I do every single morning, and before my feet even hit the floor. 3 minutes, just 3. And I swear to you, with all the weight of my years behind it, that it's made all the difference between staying active and sitting on the sidelines. Oh, and before I forget, because at my age, memory isn't what it used to be. If what I'm sharing helps you out, subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost a dime, and it helps me keep sharing, because as long as I can talk, I have things to say. And I still have quite a few things left to say. I wasn't always like this. Now, I'm not going to tell you I was an Olympic gymnast or anything like that. But I was an active woman, the kind who got up early, the kind who wouldn't stay in bed even if it was pouring rain. My mother, God rest her soul, her name was Grace. A name that fit her to a T, taught me that staying in bed longer than strictly necessary was just a lack of drive or plain laziness. And for 80-something years, I followed that advice to the letter. I got up, got dressed, and got moving. The way you're supposed to, no complaints, no excuses. But I hit my 90s and something started to change. The doctors said it was normal. It's just your age, Maggie, your age. Right, my age. As if I didn't know how old I am. Anyway, the aches started. Not the kind that leave you crying in bed, no. More like those dull aches that are there from the second you open your eyes and don't let you forget about them for a minute. My knees, my right hip, which was always the stubborn one. My fingers, which felt like old wood in the mornings, the kind that creaks and won't bend. And the worst part wasn't the pain itself. Like I said, at this point, you develop a forced coexistence with pain. The worst part was the fear that trailed right behind it. That quiet fear of thinking, what if tomorrow I just can't do it anymore? That fear is what does the most damage. I'll leave it at that. Well then, faced with that fear, I, being the stubborn Bostonian that I am, decided to do something about it. And that's when my 3 attempts began. My 3 doors, as I call them now. The 3 I had to try before finding the one that actually opened. The first door was my daughter Susan. Susan is a good girl, with the best of intentions, mind you. She has this habit, very typical of her, of trying to fix everything. She took me to a physical therapist. A young, very nice guy. Hot with that smile people get when they explain things really slowly, because they think you don't quite get it. He gave me a printout, a sheet of paper with little black and white drawings of a lady doing weird movements with her arms up and her back arched. 15 exercises, 15, with reps, with sets, with resting times between one thing and the next. I tried it. I really did. Because I'm not one to give up on the first try. For 2 weeks, I put that paper on my nightstand before going to sleep so it would be right there in the morning. I'd get up, go into the living room in my wool slippers, the gray ones, which are the most comfortable, put the paper on the floor, and get to work on the little drawings. On the third day, I hurt my shoulder doing something the paper called scapular rotation. Give me a break. And the physical therapist said it was normal, that the body needs to adjust. Maybe so. But at my age, I didn't have much patience left for adjustments that hurt before they heal. I put the paper in the drawer. I didn't throw it away, mind you. It's still right there in the nightstand. But into the drawer it went. First door. Closed. The second door came from Barbara, my oldest daughter, the one who's lived in Cambridge since she married Robert, I don't know how many years ago. Barbara is a reader, always has been, and she brought me a book, one of those senior wellness books, with really nice pictures and everything. Women in their 70s, which the book considered seniors, smiling on tropical beaches, doing stretches in bright, lush gardens. I just had to laugh as soon as I saw it. And the book recommended waking up at the same time every day, which I've done since I can remember. Drinking a glass of warm water with lemon upon waking, ditto. And then doing a series of activation movements, standing up, in the bathroom, looking in the mirror, to connect with your body and start the day with intention. That's what it said, with intention. Well, wouldn't you know? One November morning, I got up feeling willing, went into the bathroom, which is freezing in the winter because my windows are old and the draft sneaks in without asking, stood in front of the mirror and started doing the movements from the book. On the third movement, I almost fell. I didn't fall. I grabbed onto the sink just in time, but it gave me a massive scare. I stood perfectly still for a good while, holding onto that white sink with the crack in the corner that's been there for 15 years, looking at myself in the mirror, catching my breath, and I thought, this isn't going to work. Not the almost falling part. That can happen to anyone. What wasn't going to work was me, depending on a book written by someone who doesn't know me from Adam, who doesn't know what my mornings are like, or how my hip is doing, or how cold my bathroom gets, to tell me how to start my day. The book went on the hallway shelf. I didn't throw that away either. You don't throw books away. Second door, also closed. The third door was opened by Nancy, my neighbor on the second floor. 72 years old, which to me is just a kid. Very active, very upbeat, always practically jogging across the landing with her groceries. She told me she went for a walk every morning at 7:30, come rain or shine. It's the best thing in the world, Maggie. It clears your head, gets you going. You come back home feeling brand new. I listened to her. I told her I'd give it a try, and I did. For a month, I made a point to go for a walk in the mornings. Not far, mind you. Just down to the park if the weather was nice, or sometimes just to the corner and back. But getting out, breathing the air, moving. Those mornings did have something nice about them, I won't lie. The crisp winter cold in Boston, which just hits different than the cold in other places. The smell of coffee from the diners when they first open. The pigeons in the park, always just as lazy, always on the exact same bench. But one morning, it was a Tuesday, and I remember perfectly, because on Tuesdays, Frank from 4B always sweeps the hall at odd hours and makes a huge racket. As I stepped off the curb across from my building, My foot slipped. I didn't fall all the way. I grabbed onto a street lamp that was right there, as if placed on purpose. But I hurt my wrist, and I was left shaking in the middle of the street, with my purse on the ground and my scarf crooked, badly spooked. A young man helped me pick up my things. Very polite. He asked if I had family nearby. I told him yes, that I lived alone, but was perfectly fine. And he looked at me with that face. You know the face. The poor little old lady face. That look hurt more than my wrist, I assure you. When Susan found out, because that woman has a radar, she always finds out everything, she got very nervous. She started talking about assisted living. She talked about more supervision. She brought up a lot of things I just wasn't ready to hear yet. I listened to her, sure, because I was raised to be polite. But inside I was thinking, no, not yet, not yet. Third door closed. This one left more of a mark than the others. If you're still watching this, it's because it sounds familiar, because you've lived it yourselves or someone you love is going through it. That moment when your body starts asking for different things and you don't really know how to listen to it. Stick around, because what comes next is the part nobody tells you about. The part I figured out all on my own, one January morning, without anyone having to tell me. It was a Monday. It was a really good, biting cold. It's the kind that sneaks under the blankets if you don't tuck yourself in right. I woke up at 6, like always. I opened my eyes. I looked up at the ceiling. That ceiling I know like the back of my hand, with the little crack near the light fixture that I never bothered fixing because by now it feels like part of the family. And I didn't get up. It wasn't a calmly made decision. It was just my body simply saying no. My knees were stiffer than usual. My hip was pulling. My fingers, curled up into tight little fists, were taking their time to obey. And I had a moment, just a moment, I confess, when I thought maybe Susan was right, that maybe I just couldn't do it on my own anymore. But then, lying flat on my back, looking at the ceiling, not really knowing what to do, I started moving my feet without thinking, like I did when I was a little girl, wiggling my feet under the covers just for the sheer pleasure of feeling the warmth. First my ankles. I rolled them slowly, one, then the other, and I felt something loosen up in there, something that had been tight and suddenly gave way, like a knot coming undone after a long time untouched. Then my knees. I bent them gently without getting up, bringing my legs up toward my chest one by one, only as far as they would go, without forcing it. Then my fingers. I closed them and opened them, closed them and opened them, slowly, like I was squeezing something invisible, and my hip. I rolled onto my side, my good side, the left one, with my head on the pillow and the blankets still over me, and I rotated my right leg outward and inward 5 times, smoothly, like I was swimming in slow motion, and then that was it. I looked at the clock on the nightstand. 3 minutes, exactly 3 minutes. When I got up, little by little, holding onto the headboard like I always do, my legs answered. Not perfectly. I'm not going to sell you a bill of goods. But they answered. Better than the day before. Better than a lot of days before. Well, how about that, I thought. Such a simple little thing. Since that January, I haven't missed a single day, rain or shine. Whether I'm in a good mood or a bad one, whether I slept like a baby or spent the night tossing and turning with my thoughts. Always 3 minutes, before getting out of bed, in the exact same order. First the ankles, 8 circles inward, 8 outward, each one. The ankles are the first to complain after a night of lying still, and the first ones you have to win over. And they're like bouncers. If you don't open the door for them first, they won't open it for you. Then the knees, bringing them up gently toward my chest 4 times, each leg, never going further than where my body says yes. That's important. Never push past where your body says yes. I've learned not to argue with it by now. Then the fingers. 10 opens and closes, like I'm waving hello to someone, but very slowly. I need them for everything. For my morning coffee, for the phone, for the buttons on my cardigan to write a name on the calendar. And finally, the hip, lying on my side, my good side, 5 movements with my top leg, outward, inward, gently, no rush. 4 movements, 3 minutes. 0 equipment, 0 pamphlets, 0 mirrors, 0 freezing bathrooms, 0 risk of falling. Just me and this body of mine, speaking the language we've spent over 100 years learning together. Does it fix everything? No, for the record. There are still bad mornings. There are days when I wake up and my knees still feel like they're made of wet lead. I won't lie to you about that. But there are fewer bad mornings than before. I can promise you that. And at my age, that's nothing to sneeze at. Truth be told, what matters most to me isn't the pain. The pain at this stage is an old acquaintance I've learned to live with, to negotiate with, to not let it boss me around completely. What matters most to me is getting up by myself, going to the bathroom by myself, making my own coffee and making it strong, because at my age I don't have time for watered-down coffee. That's what keeps me whole inside. Not perfect health that packed its bags a long time ago and doesn't even send postcards. What keeps me going is the dignity of still being the one who decides how her own day begins. And those 3 minutes, wouldn't you know, make all the difference. Because by the time I actually sit up, my body isn't totally asleep anymore. We've already had our little chat. We've already come to an agreement. And together, my body and I, we get up. Sometimes I think about all the time I wasted trying to do what other people told me to do. The physical therapist's exercises, Barbara's book, Nancy's walks, things that probably work great for them, things suggested with the best of intentions, all of them, but they weren't mine. Nobody taught me how to listen to my own body. And they taught me to obey it when it complained loudly, and to ignore it when it was quiet. They gave me other people's routines, but nobody told me that the best expert on my body at this stage of the game is me, that I've spent over a century living in it, getting to know it, fighting with it, forgiving it, and that kind of knowledge is worth way more than any printed sheet of paper with little drawings on it. You don't just live 100 years, you survive them. And you survive by learning little by little to keep pushing forward with what you have, not with what you used to have, not with what you wish you had, with what you have today, this morning right here in this bed. That's what I'm leaving you with today, plain and simple. And what about you all? What do you do in the mornings when your body wants nothing to do with the world? Do you also have those mornings where you wake up and the first thing you feel is that everything is just too heavy? Let me know down in the comments. I read everything you post. You know that. At 103, I've got plenty of time for it. And I like knowing I'm not the only one who had to learn how to talk to her own body before asking it to get out of bed.